Okay, welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at a movie that's definitely been talked about, Karate Kid Legends. But we're doing it through a specific lens, a review you shared with us titled Karate Kid Legends Movie Review.
That's right. So we're not giving our review today. Instead, we're digging into what this one reviewer thought. You know, the film brings back Daniel LaRusso, Mr. Hong,
Ralph Macchio and Jackie Chan, yeah.
and adds a new lead, Li Fong. Our goal here is just to unpack this review, pull out the key takeaways so you get a really clear sense of this perspective.
Great, let's jump right in. So the review says the basic idea, the movie's core, is trying to blend that original 84 feeling.
Yeah, that emotional connection.
The more contemporary vibe.
Exactly, and the key players are Macchio, Chan, and then Ben Wang as the new kid, Li Fong.
And Li Fong, based on this source, he's a kung fu prodigy from Beijing, moves to New York after something tragic happened.
Yeah, a personal tragedy. And then, you know, the setup is pretty classic. He ends up getting mentored by both Daniel and Mr. Han.
Dual mentors. So, a coming-of-age martial arts story, kind of following that familiar path.
Absolutely. That's how the review frames it.
Okay, so given that setup, what was the reviewer's first impression? Like, their gut reaction?
Well, it sounds like it was pretty mixed, honestly. They actually said it wasn't bad, but it wasn't extraordinary either.
Not extraordinary. That's telling.
Right. Kind of sets the stage for the whole review.
So how did they describe the storytelling itself, the feel of it?
The word that kept coming up was safe.
Safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it didn't really take big swings, creatively speaking. Stuck pretty close to the formula you'd expect.
Okay, safe, not extraordinary. Does that mean it didn't really stick with them afterwards?
That seems to be the feeling, yeah. The review basically says it's the kind of movie you watch once. You might like parts of it.
Appreciate certain things.
Right. But it's not something that stays with you or that you'd feel compelled to watch again.
Okay, so lukewarm initial take, held back by playing it safe. But usually, even in mixed reviews, some things stand out positively. What did this reviewer like?
Yeah, definitely. Despite the reservations, they highlighted two things pretty clearly: the music and the visuals.
Okay, let's start with visuals. What did they say about the look of the film?
They thought the cinematography did a really good job capturing, like, the buzz of New York City, that urban energy.
Grind, yeah.
But also contrasting that with the gracefulness of the martial arts. They liked that visual mix.
And the music, this sounded like a really strong point for them. They specifically mentioned an Alex Warren song, Can't Stop This.
Yes. And what's interesting is the reviewer pointed out the official track wasn't even out yet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but a live version on YouTube was apparently getting a lot of attention. They felt it brought this modern, high-energy feel that really clicked with some key scenes.
Huh. And it went beyond just that one song, right?
Oh, yeah.
The soundtrack overall.
It did. They mentioned other instrumental pieces were already up on Spotify, and this actually led the reviewer to suggest, well, to speculate, that the full soundtrack might end up being better than the film itself.
Whoa, okay. Outshine the film. That's a big statement.
It is.
What do you think they meant by that? Like, was the music just that good, or did it kind of highlight weaknesses elsewhere?
Reading between the lines of the review, probably a bit of both. They clearly thought the music and visuals were genuine strengths, really well done.
Right.
But saying they might outshine the film kind of suggests those strong points couldn't fully lift the whole thing, you know? Implying maybe the story or other parts didn't quite match up.
That makes sense. Okay, so beyond the technical stuff like music and visuals, did the film succeed in connecting to the original legacy, paying homage?
They thought it did, yeah. It touched on those classic Karate Kid themes: discipline, honor, growth.
The core values.
Exactly. But updated for now, for a younger audience, while trying to keep that original spirit.
And obviously just seeing Macchio and Chan together again.
Big factor. The review called it a nostalgic treat. Just having them there brought a warmth and familiarity that, for the reviewer, really grounded the movie.
But, and there's usually a but.
But
This review says that same nostalgia, that familiarity, might actually be linked to the movie's biggest weakness.
that's the double-edged sword, right? What feels comforting can also feel, well, unoriginal.
And the main weakness identified was?
Predictability. Plain and simple. The reviewer felt that even with the new character and setting, the story just walked a path we've seen many times before.
Any specific predictable bits they called out?
Oh yeah, they listed the classics, the underdog training montages, the hero dealing with personal loss, and
Let me guess, the big final tournament.
you got it. The climactic tournament, all the expected beats were there.
And how were those beats executed? Competently, but...
Competently, yes. That's the word they used. But without much surprise or a fresh take, according to this review.
So this predictability, it probably divides the audience, right?
That's what the review implies. For longtime fans, maybe that familiarity is cozy. It's what they want.
Comfort food cinema.
Kind of, but for others, it could feel like, okay, we've seen this. What's new? A missed chance to evolve the franchise.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Okay, shifting from the plot to the actors, what did the reviewers say about the performances?
Generally positive, actually. For Ben Wang as Li Fong, they said it was a solid effort. Handled the vulnerability and the growing strength well.
Good.
Jackie Chan brought his, quote, usual wisdom and subtle humor. Sounds like classic Jackie.
Always delivers.
And Ralph Macchio as LaRusso, they said he still wears that mantle with ease, like slipping back into an old gi, I guess.
Yeah. And the chemistry between the generations.
They mentioned the chemistry with the younger cast worked well. Seemed fine on that front.
But was there any downside noted with the characters beyond the main leads?
Yes, one specific criticism was about the supporting characters. The review felt they were often underdeveloped.
How so?
Basically, that they existed more to move the plot forward for Li Fong, rather than feeling like real people with their own motivations or stories.
Okay. More like plot functions than full characters. That's a common issue, especially in these kinds of franchise films.
Exactly. Juggling the old and new is tricky.
So what did the reviewers say about how the film was being received more broadly? The general critical buzz?
They summed it up as a mix of reactions, pretty divided.
Okay. What were the positive takes they mentioned?
Some critics were apparently celebrating the nostalgia, that charm factor, and the whole intergenerational mentorship theme, seeing that as a plus.
And the negatives? The critics who weren't so keen?
Their main complaint, according to this summary, was that it felt too derivative, leaning too much on the original's legacy instead of building its own thing.
Right. Relying on the past instead of forging a new path.
Pretty much.
Did the review mention any specific moments that fell flat, even if they looked good on paper?
Yeah, they actually pointed out that even the big moments, like the final tournament, which should be the climax.
The emotional peak.
Right. They felt it lacked the emotional punch. It didn't hit as hard as the ending of the original movie did.
Ooh, that's a significant point.
Yeah.
That original climax is so iconic because of the emotion.
Exactly. So if that's missing...
Okay, so pulling all these threads together, the good, the bad, the safe, what was the reviewer's final verdict, the bottom line?
Their conclusion was that Karate Kid Legends is a respectful tribute and a decent continuation.
Decent. Not amazing, not terrible. Decent.
Yep. And in terms of its impact, they felt it doesn't really harm the franchise's reputation.
Doesn't tarnish the legacy.
But it doesn't redefine it either. It entertains, sure, but doesn't challenge. It reminds you of the old stuff without really reinventing it.
So, based purely on this one review, who's the target audience that's going to walk away happy?
Probably existing fans of the series, especially those who value good visuals and, a really strong soundtrack.
And who might be left wanting a bit more.
Anyone looking for something genuinely new or groundbreaking in the Karate Kid world. For them, the review suggests it feels more like a polite nod to the past.
A respectful bow.
Yeah, rather than a triumphant return.
And did they give it a number? A score?
They did a 6.5 out of 10.
6.5, okay. And just to quickly recap the reasoning behind that score, blending the pros and cons they laid out.
Sure. The pros were the solid visuals, the definite nostalgic appeal of seeing Macchio and Chan back, and that really promising soundtrack.
Got it.
But those were held back, in their view, by a script that felt too formulaic, too predictable, storytelling that just played it too safe.
Right. So we've walked through this review you shared, looked at the setup, the reviewers kind of meh initial reaction, the highlights like visuals, and especially the music. And the big drawbacks they saw, like predictability and just safety.
Yeah, hopefully unpacking this one perspective gives you, the listener, a clearer picture of at least one take on this new Karate Kid movie.
Definitely. This review really makes you think about what makes a movie like this work. They highlight strong style, great music, good visuals, maybe the soundtrack's the best part, but felt it couldn't quite overcome a story that played it safe.
Yeah.
So it leaves us wondering, kind of building on what the reviewer touched on, can great style truly make up for a story that doesn't take risks, especially in a franchise? Or does becoming legendary actually require pushing boundaries, taking chances? What parts of a movie like this really stick with you long after you've watched it?